Hi, my name is Zarar Khokhar and I'm a freshman in the College of Engineering at Drexel. I'm also an international student and today I'm excited to share my experiences and why I'm applying to be an RA. When I first arrived at Drexel, the pace was intense. Between 10-week quarters, late night studying, and adjusting to life in Philadelphia, it was easy to feel overwhelmed. Early into the term, I noticed someone on my floor who rarely came out of their room and didn't really interact with other people. So instead of pushing them into situations, I reached out privately to check in and acknowledge how the situation was. I focused on small, consistent actions, greeted them whenever I saw them, and checked in after quizzes or midterms. During study time, I asked them what they were working on and shared how I was managing my workload. And group settings that intentionally make space for them to participate without putting them on spot, and over time they opened up about struggling academically and feeling out of place. What I learned is that inclusion doesn't really require big gestures, but being steady and approachable builds trust, and trust is what helps people feel like they belong. For the second question, if a resident approached me upset because their roommate keeps ignoring shared agreements, my first step would be to listen without interrupting or judging them so that they feel taken seriously. Once they feel heard, I'd help them clearly name what's happening. For example, which shared agreements are being ignored and how that's affecting them. I also encourage them to focus on I statements rather than blame the other person. That helps keep the conversation from becoming too personal or too defensive. And then after that, if they're open to it, I'd facilitate a calm conversation between both roommates and I'd make sure each person gets equal space to speak, keeping the discussion respectful and then guiding them towards compromises rather than perfection. Because sometimes perfection isn't really possible. It also means that sometimes you need to help them choose the right time or setting for the conversation so that it doesn't really feel confrontational. If the issue continues despite those efforts, I document the situation and involve professional staff while continuing to support both my residents. My goal would always be to help resolve the conflict early before small issues turn into bigger ones. For the third question, to me, an inclusive community is one where people feel comfortable being themselves without being singled out or put on display. As an international, I've experienced how small differences like communication styles, social norms, or even how comfortable someone is speaking up can quietly make people feel disconnected. As an RA, I would foster inclusion through intentional, everyday interactions rather than only big programs. That could look like hosting low pressure study nights where people can sit quietly together, checking in one on one with residents who seem less involved, or creating small group spaces where not everyone has to be outgoing to belong. I'm also mindful of the language I use and the assumptions I don't make. I try to ask questions, listen first, and give people space to share at their own pace. Inclusion works best when residents feel welcome naturally, not because they're being singled out, but because the environment itself makes belonging easy. I want to be an RA because I'm the kind of person who looks out for people around me, especially when the semester gets intense. During midterms last quarter, I noticed a lot of residents on my floor were stressed and isolating themselves. So I started inviting them to low pressure study nights. It wasn't really a big event, just a quiet space where people could focus, ask quick questions, and feel less alone. I'm also someone who pays attention to the patterns in the community. I notice when people stop showing up and when the energy shifts on the floor, or when small issues start becoming habits. My own RAs created low pressure events early in the year, and that helped me come out of my shell and showed me how intentional programming can shape a floor. Instead of reacting late, I tend to check in early, and that's something that I want to bring to the RA team, that proactive approach. As an international student, I've had to adapt quickly, figuring out new systems, new expectations, and new ways of communicating. And that's made me patient, observant, and respectful of different backgrounds. As an RA, I bring consistency, strong communication, and a steady presence. Someone residents can approach early before small problems turn into bigger ones. And finally, I'd like to say thank you for your time and consideration. I'm excited about the opportunity to support residents and contribute to the residential community that feels respectful, balanced, and supportive.